Hi and welcome to the Guitarist Tone Lounge. I'm Neville Martin.
I'm Richard Barrett.
You'll notice a slightly different looking tone lounge now because of obviously what's going on in the world today. So we're sitting 2 meters apart and we'll leave it at that. We won't go any further. The backdrop's obviously rather different because we can't sit in our usual quite confined space in the tone lounge. So this is a large area. So that's all we'll say about it. Today we're going to look, Richard and I are going to look at some guitars by Emerald. They're made in the Republic of Ireland, hence the name of course, and they're the brainchild of Alistair Hay. Alistair worked in the Formula One boat racing world using carbon fibre, and he's brought that technology to these amazing looking guitars.
I mean, the impression that I get is that he's not trying to replace wood in any way, but these are an alternative, structurally very, very stable, very, very strong, no need for bracing. Yeah. Take them anywhere in the world, get it out of the case, it'll be in tune.
Exactly. In fact, I think Alistair says you could do a gig in Alaska, fly down to Hawaii the next day, and your guitar's exactly the same as it was the day before. It's interesting how they're made. They're laid out in a kind of a former, like a mould, and the layers of fiberglass are laid inside, including the neck, and then they're built up. And as you can see, this is this amazing kind of, don't know how you describe it really, like a lattice work of carbon fibre. And then the top's put on afterwards, and the bridge is formed with the top and
yes,
the fingerboard.
Not glued on or anything, it's actually
not
part
glued on,
of it.
It's formed as part of it. So it's an incredibly strong, as Richard said, structure. There's no bracing inside at all. The structure of carbon fibre is strong enough, it's got enough tensile and integral strength not to need bracing. So literally it's a brace-free zone. The interesting thing about it straight away is the sound, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah, because no matter how open your mind, you sort of think, right, so it's an acoustic guitar made of carbon fibre. What on earth is that going to sound like? And I think I played that one first.
Yeah.
Hit an E minor chord on it as a sort of habit with it, picking up any acoustic, and wow, it sounds very organic indeed.
It does. I mean, they don't sound like they're not wood.
Yeah.
But you can't say they sound like a rosewood guitar or a mahogany guitar or a maple guitar. They just don't sound like, listen.
That's a proper jumbo sound as well, because that is a jumbo.
That is a jumbo.
Size.
This is over 5 inches deep, this guitar. This is a very, very big bodied guitar. It's 17 inches wide, so it's in the jumbo category. In fact, Alistair says it's possibly the largest jumbo out there, but it feels like the smallest. And it definitely, even, I mean, I'm not a big guy, I'm a little guy, but it doesn't feel like this massive thing on my body.
Same here. Yeah, there's certain guitars I won't play because I look like I'm about 12 years old, and that's very comfortable. Yeah.
There's two. This is the X30, which is the jumbo, and yours is the X20, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So this is slightly smaller scale. It's about an inch less depth. It's a beautiful kind of golden brown colour, and as you can see, we've got an arch back on this one. And let me just do the same E minor 7th test. I'm going through the pickup at the moment as well. And I'll just hit it a bit harder. I'm getting the thump back onto my chest as I hit that. It's quite satisfying and very even.
Yeah, I mean, acoustically, the thing that we both noticed, because we both play both guitars, is this one's got a real bottom end thump to it. That low E string, that 6th string. It's a real big thump to it.
Very produced sounding.
Yeah, in fact, everybody has said, people who are listening to us play, they say they sound mixed or they sound produced already, whereas we're not doing any, there's no added effects here. I'm going straight into the mics, and Richard's at the moment plugged in. We'll probably swap round, so I plug this in and Richard goes on to the mics.
Yes, you get the acoustic sound of this one as well.
The interesting thing is their sound. I mean, they're not trying to replace wood. Alistair has no pretensions of trying to replace wood. In fact, he says, I would never want to replace wood. But on Richard's guitar, you'll notice, whereas mine is the straight carbon fibre throughout, Richard's got some lovely quilted maple on the top of that.
And I believe there are options for different types of wood, and you can choose your own piece of wood, and you're not limited to having wood that's structurally strong enough to support a guitar top, so you can have it as ornamental as you like, or an alternative grain.
Yeah. Yes, it's not there to pretend it's made of wood. It's there to make it aesthetically pleasing. It's as simple as that. And I mean, guitars that look like this are bound to divide opinion to a point. Yeah. But I kind of like the Dali-esque look of that. You know, that's a very modern art design. And when you know, it's like when people first made solid body electric guitars, you didn't have to make it guitar shaped. So you could make a Flying V, or you could make an Explorer, or you could make a, you know, all those shapes. So why not? When you don't have to conform to that, why not have the sound hole on the top bout like that?
Actually, yeah, it's quite a funny thing, isn't it, to look down and be looking into the sound hole?
Well, it's very, I mean, a normal acoustic guitar, when you've got your sound hole in the middle, or even like older archtop F-hole type guitars, the sound's going away from you, so you don't actually get much of a personal hit. But the sound's coming up into our faces, and it's really quite pleasant.
It carried well, though. We were sat on the opposite side, miles apart, earlier on as we tried these guitars out for the first time earlier today, and the sound really did project, though. Yeah. So I think you could go to an acoustic jam or something like that, and you'd be heard.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can imagine, you know, being Irish, you can imagine going into an Irish pub with some fiddles and barans and all the mandolins and everything, and joining in with these. Why not? You know, absolutely why. I'll go a little bit about the guitars themselves. My one, the X30, is 25.5-inch scale length, which is the kind of standard for many acoustics. 22 stainless steel frets we've got here, and the frets are glued in. They're not hammered into a tang like they would be with wood, because you don't need to do that. And it's also stainless steel is a very modern material, isn't it?
Well, and it lasts.
And it lasts for us forever.
Forever and a day.
Nut width on this is 44.5 mil, which is kind of 1 3/4 inches, which is the standard Martin, you know, OM kind of finger picky kind of thing. They've both got these beautiful Goto 510 tuners, which have got these kind of suck lozenge kind of look. In fact, we were saying earlier, the whole things look like they've been made, then let lie on a beach for 2,000 years, and all the edges have been rounded off, you know, like you get with pebbles. But
absolutely, I think the spec is quite similar in terms of width. I've got the stainless steel frets too, and it's worth mentioning that the fretboard, like all the other parts of the guitar, are carbon fibre, though it gave me the impression of ebony to look at it. It's only when you move it around in the light that you see there's a different kind of reflection. Yeah. But I'm a 24 fret board. I mean, I can just about get up there. And I think it's quite stylish. I mean, as I'm looking down at this, I'm reminded to mention that there are a variety of pickup systems and electronics available for these, aren't there? But this has got the LR bags. Element, thank you. Yeah. Yes, I can remember. Just a volume and tone control there. And what we learned today when we were setting up to do this for you was that there's quite a healthy output from these as well. It's only on about halfway on the dials. Yeah,
I've used elements in several of my guitars. I like them because they're very, they don't impart too much of a sound of their own to the guitar. They're very flat. And I think when you've got an instrument made of inert materials like this, that's a really no bad thing, is it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can probably change the character of it to fit in a mix or a venue.
Exactly. Yes, there's a volume and tone controls in the sound hole here. Very easy to get to, simple, fuss-free. But you can, on some of the other models, there's a MIDI version, there's one with a humbucking pickup on it, all kinds of stuff. So, but these are the kind of standard electroacoustics, if you like, that they make.
Which would make a great working instrument.
It was. I mean, Richard and I have sat down here and just messed around. Let's do a quick mess around of something. They don't sound like, you know. Although, what are they going to sound like? Well, they sound like acoustic guitars. So here we go.
practicing to do, but the guitars sounded nice.
Lockdown blues. Yes, but they just sound just. There's nothing about the sound of them. Think, oh, it's made of some weird material. I mean,
no, there's nothing to, you know, like most guitarists, I suspect I'm a small C conservative type really, and just don't want the whole thing to feel alien. And I can think of very popular designs that are a lot more out there than this.
Oh yes, quite a few wooden guitar manufacturers are making very outlandish looking things. Some with sound holes up this area of the neck.
Yep.
The body as well. One thing I really like about them is the necks are beautifully dimensioned. That's a kind of fairly classic C stroke D, sort of shallow medium.
Slightly, it's not symmetrical.
C stroke D. Very comfortable in the hand. Doesn't feel unusual. They're not weird to the touch. You might think they might be cold and unappealing, but they're very, very welcoming to the touch. And the familiarity of the nut width and the scale length and everything. They're 16-inch radius, so they're quite flat, kind of flatter than, say, a Gibson, which is, I think, 10 or 12, might be 12. So they're a bit flat, but they don't feel flat like a classical guitar. So they're very friendly, very warm, very instantaneous.
What I notice as well about them out of the box in this way is that you've got a very friendly action, not ridiculously low because you wouldn't get any tone out of it, but the string height's great. Plenty of room for adjustment at the saddle. You know, you're not at the outside edge. No. I found with some guitars you think, oh, if I could just kind of tweak the action a little bit. These seem to, well, they feel as if they've been made by a guitar player that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Understands the instrument.
And that whole thing about them not shifting around with different temperatures, and you know, these have come from Ireland, presumably on a boat or a plane. They've been sitting in a box in our studio here for 4 or 5 months. We got them out today. Both guitars were tuned slightly flat. They were in tune, but they were ever so slightly flat. Richard and I tuned them once, literally each string once to its respective tuning. We didn't have to mess about with it, or didn't have to slightly adjust my third string flat, which I usually do, or whatever. They were both perfectly in tune, and that was about 3 hours ago.
Yeah, easy.
We have not touched the tuning on these guitars ever since, and they're both, you know, that sounds, you know, great.
That's a very difficult chord to play in tune with that.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting thing about them as well, and a very satisfying thing too. They're comfortable on. I mean, I'm just sitting. You know, think of often I play my acoustics at home, and after a while, you feel the old
absolutely
thigh getting. And they've got this nice little dressed away bit here. Obviously, that's moulded in. It's not dressed away. It's moulded in. So you've got this immediately kind of.
In fact, I noticed that particular guitar. I mean, this has a little bit of it as well. The angles are very clever. It's very interesting. The shape of the lower side of the guitar.
Well, if you look on that, rather than being parallel, the front and the back parallel, it actually goes in like that. So where you sit it on your knee and it's already angled slightly how you play it. So you're not necessarily sitting it with the corner of the guitar digging into your thigh.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtle things like that which aren't immediately apparent when it comes out of the box, because the big thing that you think about is that it's not made of wood. And it sounds all right though, you know. And then you realise, well, okay, there's all these other refinements that make them very comfortable to use. And I can seriously see in a world where I become a travelling musician again, that to pull something like this out of the box and to be able to use it without having to worry is really worth something.
Yeah. Should we just do something which we haven't done today? If I play a simple straight 12-bar blues and let Richard do some lead over the top of it to see what it sounds like. We haven't even tried this ourselves, so this is completely fresh. But I just thought of it, and it's very different to anything else we've done. So I'm going to play a little blues in E.
Great. you know what I meant.
A B, an E, so what? So they sounded really nice. I mean, that didn't sound like two alien objects from outer space. It sounded like two acoustic guitars to me.
Yeah, and it felt like that to play as well. Yeah, the response and everything.
Yeah.
It's very even. It's a funny thing. I mean, I love acoustic guitar and played some real crackers, but sometimes just to pick it up and play a blues like that, you might find that on the single note side, it's not really delivering.
No.
Great for big strum chords or whatever, especially a jumbo type like that.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a versatility going on with these.
Definitely, and neither of us had played either of these guitars ever before. We picked them up afresh today, so these are very, very new to us. But they feel comfortable in the hand. They feel, weirdly, they feel familiar, and they should feel alien, but they don't at all.
I'm guessing that some of that is the incredible amount of thought that must have gone in. When we started talking a few minutes ago about the fine details like this, okay, I think I've seen that kind of thing a couple of times before on designs, but these guitars are absolutely, from top to bottom, full of little details like that that you don't necessarily notice at first.
No, I mean, again, when you're making guitars in an unconventional way out of unconventional materials, you're not having to adhere to the format that's been laid down over centuries by wooden guitar manufacturers. You don't have to do that anymore.
No.
So you can build in your forearm chamfer, and you can build in a bit more comfort around the knee area, and all the rest of it. And that's one of the things that I like about these. And also, they do sound different to each other.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'd personally be really interested to try a dozen of them and compare, which is always fun anyway, if you're the kind of person I am. I'm not sure what kind of person that is, but that sort of thing's really fascinating to me. But and these I bet they'd be really consistent.
Oh my, I'm sure they would. I mean, this one, as I mentioned earlier, when we both tried the opposite guitars at first, and we switched over, but we both noticed with this, I mean, that bottom E, that's like the difference between sticking a Strat through a 2x12 Fender Deluxe and a 4x12 Marshall cab. It's that. This is a closed back sounding, big, fat, beefy thing, and you could chug with this. I could. It's really, really got a thwack to it.
I reckon someone like Nick Harper could get a hell of a tune out of one of those.
We haven't messed about with tunings either. I mean, I'm not a great tunings person, but I would imagine these would hold. In fact, David Mead, who works on Guitarist, he is a great tuner. He's got one of these at home on long-term test, and David tunes way down on some of his tracks. And I believe David's found no problem with the tuning at all, and I can't see why, because they're so strong, they're so rigid. They have truss rods.
Yes, I noticed that.
So you can tweak it, but we've never found any need to touch any of these.
Well, no, and I imagine you'd be looking at low maintenance. What with the stainless steel frets and the carbon fibre neck, I'm thinking that you wouldn't have to be getting lots of setups and things. And they are very well set up out of the box as well. I mean, I think it's almost an accepted fact of life, well, as far as I've experienced, that you buy a guitar and chances are you're going to need to go and get it sorted out to your own spec, aren't you? You get your own strings on it, you need the truss rod done, you need the action done.
Yes. Yeah. But I'm trying to think of any other spec issues with these, but the nut and the bridge pins are all Graphtec, so they're kind of that same family of carbon fibre kind of family. So in fact, pretty much all of these guitars, the whole of these guitars, are man-made materials or non-organic materials, perhaps, unless they might be abalone inlays in this bridge pins. I can't tell whether they're real or not, but if they are, that's probably the only thing in the whole guitar that's organic, per se. But I love it actually. Just looking closer, little details like that, where the lovely little thing going into the sound hole is really attractive, and all this stuff that's what I really like about them, and the little cutaway there. I mean, I haven't ventured up here at all, but you could
Yes,
actually get there.
Yeah. I like the fact that the strap button is here as well, which I only really just noticed because we haven't been playing standing up. But that's as we know, a really good place for a strap button to be. But you wouldn't want to drill.
But there's no heel, so you can't have it like where Taylor put it, which is around this side of the heel, because obviously it's one homogeneous piece of crafting.
I have a token heel.
Do you?
It's slightly more moulded in. I don't know, I get the impression it's a nod towards having what you expect to find on there. But again, we're not bound by the technical limitations of a wooden glue structure, are we?
No. Okay, what should we do next?
Well, I've taken a sneaky opportunity to tune this to open G, because we were talking about that earlier. And thought if I had a little play around with that.
Okay, and while we're at it, why don't we swap round so I DI and you use the mics?
Sure.
Okay, in summary, neither Richard nor I had ever touched an emerald guitar before this morning, and we didn't quite know what to expect because we're both fairly traditional, I think, when it comes to playing acoustic guitars, aren't we?
Yes, definitely.
I'm very old school. It's the old tried and trusted names that you'll all know. But we were genuinely, honestly, most pleasingly surprised, weren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. It was, well, because you pick up a guitar that you're not very comfortable with, and in a situation like this you can appreciate you're at a massive disadvantage, and so I'm very grateful to them for making such a nice guitar to play.
Yes, sound-wise, feel-wise, they don't surprise you. You know, very often you get a guitar and you think, oh, it sounds so different, I'm not familiar with it. It feels so different, I'm not familiar with it. These sounded kind of like you expected a great acoustic guitar to sound like. We've all said it individually, privately off camera as well. Yes. They play great, they're ergonomic in the hand.
Yeah, and the evenness of the frequency response. I'm not a recording engineer, but I appreciate that in some situations you get a lovely big booming jumbo acoustic, and you've got studio engineers going, right, you've got that, have you? Right, okay. And then they're filtering this out and that out, and I get the feeling that wouldn't be such an issue with these.
These guitars, that you can tell they're from the same family because they have a similar inherent tone. That the tonality is the same. They're very different guitars because this one, with its massively deep body like that, we actually looked at it at first and wondered if it could be a baritone because it's such a big old beast. But in fact, this has got that big chunky bottom end to it, which kind of extends the range a bit further than that, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's funny, when I picked this up immediately after playing that one earlier, I did notice that it was a bit more contained. Though you give an E minor chord a good whack and you still get some thud.
It's like if we go back to names that we all know, it's like a J200 compared to a Martin OM.
Yeah.
In a way, they're both occupying similar kinds of frequency, although I'd say this has got more bottom end than a J200, which tend to be a little bit more toppy. But this is a very beefy guitar, and they sound great together.
Yeah, they do actually.
They do complement each other. And, you know, one being mic'd and the other being DI'd with the LR Baggs element. There's nothing weird about these guitars. In terms of their price, we were surprised as well, because we both were thinking like $3,500 for a kind of handmade, exotic, exclusive instrument like this. But these both begin at about 19-25 euros.
Yeah, I mean, you can custom order a whole bunch of options, and I think they'll make it for you, including the tops and everything. And of course, that's going to add to the price. You're going to pay for that. But I think that one is the base spec.
Yeah. So this is just basically the carbon fibre shell. Obviously, it's finished.
Yeah.
And it's glossy and it's really interesting. It's
quite attractive, actually. It's not wood grain, but it's a very attractive pattern.
But it is. I mean, you were saying how you like that bronzy kind of colour on the back.
You know, I
and
like
so one of these
look
in that kind of colour would look great.
Yeah, a top like that, I think was really great.
Yeah, yeah. If you go to the website, which is emeraldguitars.com, that shows all the pricings, it shows all the options and everything, and really, there's a whole range of guitars that are, you know, kitted out with all kinds of extras and different things. So, you know, the world's your oyster in terms of that.
Absolutely. No, it's been a very pleasant day of nice surprises. Yeah.
Well, we haven't seen each other for 5 months, or Martin, who's doing our videoing, or David, who's been sitting over here directing. And it's been really, really nice to come back to our first tone lounge of the season, as it were.
On location.
On location with these rather fine guitars. And we're going to play you out with the Tone Lounge theme tune.